Owlite. Owlite.
Is it
Owlite?
Oh.
No, I like that.
Did no one hit play?
Everyone thinks because you're a zombie, you don't know good coffee. Well, they're wrong. There's only one brew that gets my seal of approval. Deadly Grounds coffee is my guilty pleasure. The aroma is so intoxicating. It brings all of my neighbors out of the woodwork. Deadly Grounds coffee. Coffee to die for and zombie approved. It's good to get a little deadly. Use the front door! Oh, they're so disgusting.
The Dorkening and all affiliated shows are not intended for anyone under the age of 18. The following may contain discussions or scenes that have adult situations, graphic violence, nudity, strong sexual content, and graphic language. This show is intended for mature audiences only. Viewer discretion is advised.
Before them stood the house of their nightmares.
I dreamt of doors and shadows.
Can't see anything. It's scary as fuck.
Hey everybody! Thank you, Cthulhu. It's Sunday. Welcome to the Owlat Society, where we are going to gather around our virtual campfire that we are completely covering up because we have this many storytellers to talk to you tonight.
Fire. 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 Fire.
Fire.
Fire.
And,
Fire.
hi, Tom Dog.
Hey, man.
Yeah, so you can see the fire a little bit there, but
The group.
There you go.
The group
is on fire.
That's my favorite karaoke song because it's the most.
The loot is on fire.
Never mind.
We don't need no water.
Sure you do.
Why is it your favorite karaoke song?
Because it's the most enthusiastic, unenthusiastic song ever written. You can just stand on a stage and singing without moving, and just once in a while be like, and then like that again, and then that's all I need to do. Just too much.
Are we talking about the Bloodhound Gang version?
Mhm.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah,
The
that's
roof.
true.
The
'Cause
roof.
Jimmy Pop
The
has
roof is
such
on
a
fire.
monotonic. I don't want to say monotonous, but yeah, he's very monotone.
Well, in that song, especially.
okay.
All
I
of his
figured out
songs.
what song I'm gonna do for karaoke. You just made me think of that. I'm gonna do "Numb" by U2 and just have people standing there pushing my face and stuff like The Edge in the videos.
Yeah.
Because or video, I guess they didn't make a bunch of them.
Who's going to feed something in a spoon to you?
I guess it all depends on who's there.
And who's available. Yeah.
Yeah. So that we can have Ron's head, I'm gonna take down the logo there. We can see him.
The owl was much better looking than me.
Attacking.
I do want to.
It's
Alfred
Bird.
Hitchcock film. Oh my gosh.
At the
It's
very least, I do want to
Bird.
show the logo so that way we do have a new logo, guys. The lovely John
Oh, yes.
Carissa keeps making really cool things for us and sending them. So here's one of the new ones we're working with.
We got 4 new ones that came through. So this is one we're starting with, and we're gonna be playing around with them. We'll have some more T-shirts up soon, and yeah, because John is awesome.
Those
And
are make cool ceramic pens.
Oh yeah, dude. Okay, John sets up. By the way, if you guys don't know about John, if you haven't seen him before, John Crissa, part of he's the owner of Silverback Graphics. He does comic book stuff, and we've done a lot of our unwrappeds. We've done with John Crissa boxes, and I don't have my stuff. I took it all into my room, and it's all there. But like, he wraps the boxes with all of this box art. That is like the art that he doesn't feel is good enough for things, but he just gives you so much stuff. It's like, okay, I paid for these comics and stuff, and you get like, $20 more worth of comic books than you expected, and then you get a bunch of free art that goes with it, and not just the box art, just like free prints of stuff that he does, and then all the box art that we all collect, and he's just like, why do you guys do this to me? I don't want that one on display. I didn't like that one enough. That's why I stuck it to the box. And we're like, but we like that box art. So yeah, if you're ever looking for, if you're looking for a good mystery box, or you want something with like a collection kind of thing or setup, he has a bunch of key stuff, and he explains everything, and it's really really fun. And I should have used the box that I got from him most recently for Unwrapped, but I'd only ordered 2 things, and I ended up getting like 40 or something like that. So yeah, so how's everybody doing, guys? It's Sunday.
I feel like Johnny Blaze right now.
Well, look at the background. You look like him.
Well, I see the enchiladas are kicking in.
I'm old, I'm bald, and I'm fat. What more needs to be said?
I'm old and I'm
Friday are still muted. I don't know if that's deliberate or not.
It was deliberate. I didn't want to sneeze in anybody's face.
Ah, okay.
It was so cute. She did one time. She like forgot to hit mute, but instead took off her headphones and just sneezed. Like, repeatedly.
I didn't have time to click.
There was just this. Achoo. Hello. So yeah, we're all here. How's
I disappear in my background.
I'm pretty.
He's on fire.
I've been keeping busy. Actually, next month, the new Fake Horror anthology is coming out, and my newest story is going to be in that one.
Yay!
It's a great
I'm
story.
looking forward to that.
It's awesome.
Thanks, Friday.
Got any fake horror stuff coming out? There's gonna be some new well, in a while. It's gonna take a little bit longer than that, but Fractured Mind is re-releasing the first 2 Morlord from the Mythos as a box set. Gonna be coming out here in a while. We'll get you more info on that as it comes up. And both of these books are gonna have some or they have individual art, right?
How did that happen?
I don't know. You pushed
I didn't even hit any buttons.
Maybe you were purveying some bullshit.
I don't know how to fix area. Yeah, I wasn't even touching my keyboard or anything, or my mouse or anything. It just happened. I'm like,
I pressed.
You're a wizard, Harry.
I did want to try and say something if I could about the Fractured Mind thing. I'm super excited about it because I have a story in volume 2, but there was an opening in volume 1 recently for this re-release, and I'm writing what now might be my new favorite story that I've done. I'm close to done. Every night I've been getting like between like 300 to 500 words on it for a couple nights, so I'm right at the end of it now. I can't wait to see how it turns out, and it's really cool to be able to finally be in both volumes with you. So
yeah, I'm super excited. That'll make it 3 volumes. Well, soon to be 4 that you and I are in together.
actually, more than that, technically, isn't it?
Nope. I don't have that many things that I've actually sent out to get published. I just read a lot of shit and write a lot of shit and forget to submit.
Yeah, I keep forgetting the collectives that we did together that were supposed to go into book format didn't make it into book form. That's where my brain was. Okay. Sounds bad.
Well,
Yeah, so I submitted them other places. Well, if this book isn't going to work, it'll go in this one. I'll just change these couple lines. So,
in reference to Friday's shirt there, is it weird that I prefer the cartoon of Beetlejuice over the movie?
No,
Well, I mean,
not really.
I don't think that's weird at all. They're similar and also very different. The original movie was supposed to be a straight up horror film and a lot raunchier and dirtier than it ended up being. And they used a lot of the raunchiness actually in that cartoon that didn't make it into the script. And then they were supposed to make an original sequel to Beetlejuice called Beetlejuice and the Big Kahuna, where it was like a surfer movie, and he had to go up against the spirit of the Great Kahuna. And when that completely died out, they also took a lot of that as inspiration for the cartoon as well. So it's the cartoon pretty much killed Beetlejuice stuff.
Yeah, they could do a lot of stuff in the cartoon that they couldn't do in the movie. So the cartoon had its own kind of vibe, but it was a really cool cartoon. I remember watching it.
I actually have a signed script from the Beetlejuice 2 that never got made because they went all the way.
I saw the trailer for it, Mega Chris.
And that Jenna Ortega is supposed to be in it.
Yep.
Yeah, we're all very excited for that.
Mm-hmm.
Got a
I
full
never
Beetlejuice crew here.
saw much of the cartoon. I was more heavily into Ghostbusters at the time. That was my #1 cartoon.
Well, one, Gina Davis is hot, and two, Jenna Ortega is hot. So, yeah.
I saw the final trailer, just a snippet real quick. They don't give you much of it for part 2. And oh my goodness. And then Jenna Ortega is standing there, and Beetlejuice is like looking at her like with this horrific expression, and she's just got tears coming out of her eyes. And I'm like, oh my God, I can't wait. I got to see this.
It's gonna make her cry. Yes.
Right? Well, because Lydia always put on that tough, stature and persona, and I don't know. I want to see somebody break because of Beetlejuice.
Quite frankly, Ron, I hope the shrunken head guy makes an appearance because he was hot.
Oh, God. No, that was a smoker that was sitting next to him, wasn't it?
Raz has something.
I had a little accident.
They released at CinemaCon, which is the big giant thing that happens when all the big networks come together and show off what they're doing for the next year. That was when they finally released the plot. The plot is going to be that Lydia, her daughter, is missing, and she summons Beetlejuice with the help of her mother to help find her daughter. And a good chunk of the movie is actually going to take place in the afterworld this time, like a good chunk of it. So we're going to see a lot of things we've not seen.
Oh man, that sounds good. Heaven help whoever took that kid.
Mm-hmm.
I'm looking forward to that now. Mm-hmm.
The juice is loose.
Wait. Is Sling Blade going to be part of the new Beetlejuice now? So French fried potatoes. Mm-hmm.
Might as well be. Mm.
We may also be seeing Beetlejuice's wife. There's a rumor
I
about
like
it.
the way she looks. Mm.
He's got a wife?
Since when?
That's what I was trying to tell you guys about. But yeah, apparently he has a wife, and we may be seeing her in this film.
I thought the whole point of the first movie was he wanted to marry that kid.
Actually, if you pay attention enough to the first movie, there is a side thing where he talks about his ex, which was never discerned on whether he was still married or not.
Yeah, he took the ring off of her finger and said, "She ain't mean nothing to me."
No, that was someone else.
Is it really bigamy if you're dead? I mean,
till death do you part, I guess.
I mean, if you have an afterlife set up like they do, it's hard to say.
Have to read the
Now
book.
I'm thinking of The Corpse Bride. Thanks.
You're welcome. I have that costume in my Sims, like 4 of them.
We should probably start getting into
Yeah.
stories.
We should.
Yeah, we are. This is a story.
One comment and we're all sidetracked.
What? This ain't padded cell?
Is this padded cell? Oh. It's
Starting to feel like it.
Oh, is this your first time here, Mike?
No, but
Okay.
it's been a while. I don't get to come on that often.
Third
Just
time.
whenever
Okay.
Friday invites me, I'm like, sure, why not?
But you say that like you're surprised.
We have a squirrel for a reason.
Yeah.
Oh, that's where it came from.
Yes, Ratatosker's here because we just kind of squirrel off. And then he used to bang his head, but he was getting concussion after concussion, and poor guy.
It's not.
Felt bad
My
for him.
square ain't big enough to show I've got your podcast.
You can kind of see the squirrel's face, though.
I know, but you can't read I've got your podcast.
All I see is I got pod, which is pretty funny.
Got pod?
Got pod.
It's legal in Ohio now.
Paul got pod. All right. So we have
Let's get
some
into
folks who need to jump off soon, or maybe not soon, but early.
Yeah, that would be me. I have a 5 a.m. wake up time tomorrow, so.
All right. So we will have you go first, sir.
All right. Pick this one because it's Friday's favorite out of all the ones that I've written. So And this one's a little more lighthearted than some of the usual stuff I get. It's called The Gift. Tanya opened the door to her apartment with a deep sigh, her eyes glistening. It was sunset, and the last rays of light peering through the windows cast a deep orange glow around her living room that contrasted her depression. Leaving the door open, she went back to her car to bring her luggage in. Normally she would try to carry it all in one trip, but there was no need to anymore. There was no one for her to show off to. Her dear Alexandra's laughter will never fill the spaces between the walls again. She was an immigrant who moved to the U.S. from Russia when she was in elementary school, and she and her family still had strong ties to their old home. So strong that she wanted to be buried there in the family graveyard. Tanya respected that wish, but she never thought that she'd need to fulfill it so soon. They were barely out of their honeymoon phase when she was struck by a drunk driver on her way home from law school, ending her all too brief life. After bringing in her luggage, Tanya looked around the living room and noticed the blinking light on her house phone, indicating waiting messages. Too tired from her flight to deal with that nonsense, Tanya decided instead to bring just one bag of clean clothes from her suitcase into her bedroom, and call it a night early if she could. The next morning, Tanya blinked awake, rubbing her sore eyes, her pillow damp with tears shed from her still fresh grief. I don't know how I'll ever sleep well again, she murmured, missing her wife's smell, her embrace, her heartbeat when she laid on her chest. All she could do during the night was cling to a large pillow, and it was a poor substitute. After what could have been minutes or hours, Tanya walked out of her bedroom, zombie-like, and after a cup of coffee went to check her messages. Several were just junk calls that didn't even bother to leave a real message, just a lot of dead air and clicks. The first real message, however, caught Tanya's ear. Good morning, Mrs. Dmitriev. This is the Oaktown Post Office. This is just a friendly reminder that today is the day you requested to pick up your held mail. You also have an international package that requires your signature. Please pick them up at your earliest convenience. We won't be able to resume delivery of your mail until you do. Have a good day. Oh yeah, I almost forgot, Tanya said to herself. Her mother-in-law said that there was a family heirloom that Alexandra wanted her to have to remind her that she will always have family, but didn't really explain. Just that it would be a nice surprise and it will have a note to explain. There was one other message of consequence, one that Tanya was dreading to hear. Mrs. Dmitriev, this is Mr. Collins. As of today, you are past the grace period for your rent. An additional $60 is now required to avoid eviction. Also has been noted that you're in violation of the cleanliness clause, so if you are able to make your payment, you must remedy this issue to avoid eviction by the end of the 15th of this month. Good day. Tanya's landlord's voice was as gruff as ever as the message clicked off without any emotion. She explained to him before about her trip to Russia for her wife's funeral and that she wouldn't be able to pay on time or keep up the apartment. But he was as rigid as ever, still saying dryly when the rent was due, not accepting any excuses. The man was always like that ever since she and Alexandra moved in. Mr. Collins tried to avoid allowing the mixed-race lesbian couple to live in the neighborhood, citing family values. But fortunately, Alexandra was well versed in fair housing laws, due to the fact that she was actually studying such laws for their sake and for the sake of other couples in their position, and he grudgingly acquiesced. But the man was constantly watching them like a hawk, just waiting for a way to evict them. Tanya and Alexandra had to keep things looking pristine, even though it was an older place. The fact that Tanya had to rush going through Alexandra's things and search for important documents, leaving the living room a mess, coupled with eating nothing but takeout for days before leaving for Russia, leaving containers with food crumbs all over the kitchen, and the mountain of unwashed laundry in the bedroom, was all Mr. Collins needed to raise a fuss. The voicemail is also dated 3 days ago while she was still out of the country. The 15th was tomorrow, and she also had a meeting with her lawyer to deal with Alexandra's will. Tanya checked the clock on the microwave and it was already just past noon. The jet lag and grief really screwed up her sleep schedule. There was no way she could take care of everything she needed to today, not to Mr. Collins' satisfaction. The realization she could lose her home so soon after losing her wife put Tanya on the verge of another breakdown. Her hands were shaking, and she was breathing hard, but trying to calm down. If I can't deal with the apartment right now, I'll deal with what I can do, she told herself. Alexandra left me something. That's what I can do. Check on that, Tanya told herself. She looked herself over briefly to make sure she was at least dressed enough to go back out, not remembering if she changed into fresh clothes since last night. She did it. Screw it, I'm covered up enough. No time to shower and change anyway. Tanya grabbed her bag and keys and left for the post office. The first good sign that happened to Tanya this day was that the post office wasn't busy at all. Most people were working at this hour and not trying to pick up their parcels. She approached the front counter and gave her name, address, and showed some ID. Oh yes, Mrs. Dmitriev, the clerk said amicably. Give me a minute and we'll have your mail and package brought up. Since it's international, you need to sign for it. A minute later, the clerk brought back her mail and a rubber band. I think you should carry this to your car first before picking up your package. It's a smidge heavy. You can cut back in line when you return. I'll do that. Be right back. After Tanya returned, she saw the package sitting on the clerk's desk. It's about 3 by 2 by 2 feet. And the clerk was right. It was slightly heavy, felt 20 to 30 pounds, but nothing Tanya couldn't handle. I wonder what this is, she asked out loud as she drove back to her apartment. She arrived, she put the rest of her mail aside and placed the package on top of the kitchen table and opened it. Inside, protected by styrofoam peanuts, was a 2.5-foot tall statue. At first, Tanya was reminded of a lawn gnome, but she found that strange. Her wife was Russian, not German. There are some notable differences from what one normally expects from a lawn gnome, too. Usually they were painted. This statue is perfectly gray. Also, unlike the stereotypical gnome, this statue didn't have a hat. In fact, it was bald, or a beard, but it did have a long, handlebar-styled mustache. His face looked both wise and kind, but at the same time, for some reason, Tanya felt this figure was to be taken more seriously than the whimsical decoration she mistook it for. It also looked a little familiar. The figure was also portrayed in a sitting posture that would make it difficult to display outdoors. Plus, as their home was an apartment, there was no yard to decorate with this thing. What am I supposed to do with you? She asked, of course not expecting an answer. Tanya always did have a habit of speaking to inanimate objects anyway. This was nothing new. She removed the statue, and beneath it was a manila envelope. Opening it, there was a note written, as well as a smaller, regular envelope with a wax seal with an ornate D pressed upon it. Tanya first read the note. Dearest Nevetska, I wanted you to know that even though we only met a handful of times, when Alexandra first introduced us after you decided to get engaged, when you got married, and the tragic occasion of her funeral, I knew you meant the world to my daughter. At first, it wasn't easy to get used to the idea of her being with another woman, but when I and the rest of the family saw how happy she was with you, happier than I've ever known her, I realized my reservations were very foolish. I want you to know also that by marrying Alexandra, you became part of our family, and even though you're a world away from us and even further from her, you're still part of our family. There's one thing that Alexandra did that you weren't made aware of. She did write a will addressed only to us that, in addition to what is in her legal will, asks us to entrust our domovoi to you for as long as you need him. It may seem silly to you, but this statue has always been a part of our family for generations, and it has brought comfort during times of crisis. The smaller letter in this envelope is from Alexandra herself, and she can tell you more about him. Once again, remember, you will always have family. With love, Mother Roxana. Tanya's eyes watered as she read the letter from her mother-in-law. She even smiled for the first time since returning home from reading the Russian word for daughter-in-law that she only just started getting used to. Yeah, the domovoi statue seemed silly at first, but she knew how much family meant both to Alexandra and the rest of her family. It was one of the things that she loved about her. She knew that, had the unthinkable didn't happen, she would have made an excellent parent for any children they might have had. The young widow didn't hesitate to break open the seal on the letter her wife left her. Excuse me a moment. Hello, Tanya, my love, my Jena. I wrote this letter just 1 week before we were to be wed and arranged for its delivery on the event of my death. As I write this, I'm still so excited and in disbelief. I know you're my soulmate, my one and only, but that doesn't quiet my nerves. I hope it will be many, many years before you have to read this, and we're a pair of old gray ladies telling kids to get off our lawns or whatever. But if you're reading this sooner, I am so, so sorry for leaving you. You mean the world to me, and as much as I can't imagine my life without you, I know you feel the same. But I also don't want you to be alone forever. This time is going to be so difficult for you I can't imagine, so I'm sending some help. You are probably very either confused or very amused, or both, at my little gift to you. But trust me, Gramps here always came in handy when something bad happened to my family. And since you are my family too now, he'll help you. But you have to treat him like family too. I don't want you to eat dinner alone, so I think lesson one in taking care of him, set a place at the dinner table for him. Your favorite chicken dinner with a side of biscuits is close enough to what he likes. I think he'll go for it. He's in a sitting position deliberately so he can sit at the table with you. Talk to him, it'll help. You'll be surprised by how much things will start to get better. It will take time, but it will. I love you so much, Tanya, and I'll always be with you. Alexandra. Tanya clutched the note to her chest and started to weep and smile at the same time. I love it, Alexandra. I'll take care of him, promise. She took the small statue and sat it in Alexandra's place on the table and planted a kiss on the top of its head. I'll be back later. I have more running around to do. Talk to the lawyer, get a dinner, and get money for rent. I'll have to take out a loan. This will take the rest of the day and no chance to clean. She looked down at the statue. My only hope is basically begging Mr. Collins to let me stay, and I don't think that'll happen. Maybe I should save that money for moving to a new place. No, can't think like that yet. Need to do stuff. Be back later, she announced before heading out to take care of her last few errands. It was just around sunset when Tanya returned home, placing a grocery bag on the ground before unlocking it and opening her door. Picking it up, she came in, closed and locked the door behind her, kicking her shoes off. Entering the kitchen area, she put her dinner on the table, a pre-cooked rotisserie chicken and some fresh biscuits. She also pulled out some styrofoam plates and plastic forks as she didn't have a chance to even start cleaning the kitchen. But as she glanced around, she saw 2 clean plates, some silverware, and cups on the drying rack by the sink. Strange. I could have sworn there wasn't anything clean yet, Tanya shrugged. Well, guess I might as well use them, she concluded as she set the table, and with some amusement turned to the small domovoi statue. So Alexandra said you like chicken and biscuits, or something close enough to it, huh? I didn't cook, so I hope store-bought's okay. Mind if I call you Gramps too, like she did? She then sat across from the statue and continued, surprised at how easy it was for her to open up to it. Alexandra always loved her family, and said her grandfather meant the world to her, and it devastated her when he died. To be honest, I haven't felt close to my family in years. Ever since they found out I was gay, they haven't really spoken to me. I think it's ironic that Alexandra's family on the other side of the world was more accepting than my own, but I'm very grateful to them. I don't know how I'm going to start a new life without her, but I know I have to try. And I know I'm not alone, I guess. I have you now, Gramps. Tanya stopped to take a drink of tea, then left. Listen to me talking to you. I don't know if I'm going crazy or if this is therapeutic, but I don't care. I think it's helping. So I guess it's the latter. Tanya then blinked because she swore the expression of the statue changed from the serious countenance from before and it looked like it was in mid-laughter. Okay, I think I need to make sure I get some extra sleep tonight, she concluded, but groaned and rubbed her forehead. But I can't. I gotta get up early, try to make this place at least somewhat presentable before Mr. Collins shows up. What am I going to do? She kept eating, surprised her appetite was returning before speaking to the domovoi yet again. I think what I miss a lot is Alexandra's voice. I'm trying to fill in the void. She liked telling stories. It's one of the reasons I fell for her. Her tales of her old home in Russia were so entertaining I thought she should be an author, write them down. But instead she decided to go to law, to help people like us. She said it didn't seem too different to her. When you boil it down, she used to tell me, going to court is like a storytelling contest. Each side has to tell the best story they can, and the jury and are the audience with the judge the mediator. Whoever tells the best story wins. I think I can do that because all my stories are true. Which of course made me laugh because exaggeration was one of her strong suits, and she loved adding aspects of the fantastic. Aspects like you, I suppose, Grant. She looked at the dumb boy curiously, as if in recognition. Tanya couldn't figure out where she'd seen him before. Have we met, Gramps? I can't remember. Oh, that's gonna bug me for a while. At least it's something new to think about. I don't feel much like eating anymore. I guess I'll clean up tonight's dishes at least. Maybe if I wake up at 4:30 or 5, I can get started on this mess before Mr. Collins shows up to kick me out. I'm so tired of him I'd almost want him just to get him out of my life, but I have nowhere to go for now. Tanya growled, angrily stuffing chicken bones in an already overstuffed garbage can before heading to her bedroom, which was right next to the bathroom. Shower, bed, wake up, clean, and start packing my stuff. She went over her plan for the next day before plopping on the bed, then rolled over and punched the pillow Alexandra used to use. Ah! Why me? I can't do this alone. I need you. Why did you leave me? She pounded the pillow with each angry statement before clutching it and sobbing herself to sleep. Everything will be okay, my love. I know you're angry at me, but I wouldn't leave you without help. You're my family after all, and in my family we all help each other. Just rest and let Gramps take care of things tonight. Tanya looked next to her and saw her wife lying next to her, stroking her hair affectionately. Alexandra, am I dreaming? She reached toward her wife and touched her cheek gently. Yes, you are, Tanya. Then I don't want to wake up, she declared. You'll have to eventually. I don't want you to be with me again because you rotted in bed. Live, for both of us. When your time is really up, I'll still be here. And in the meantime, I'll always be here. Alexandra placed her hand over Tanya's heart. What do you mean Gramps will take care of things? I mean, it was nice talking to him, but Alexandra placed a finger over Tanya's lips. Do you trust me? She asked. Always, Tanya answered. Then trust him too. This isn't the first crisis he's gotten my family through, and it won't be the last. Keep him with you as long as you need him, but return him when you don't. He'll be needed by someone else eventually. I've got to go now. Just remember, I'll always love you, Tanya. Alexandra leaned in and gave her wife a deep, passionate kiss goodbye, and as Tanya reached back, her world was shattered by a loud pounding. Open up! Mrs. Dmitriev, open up at once! Oh, crap, it's Mr. Collins. Tanya shot up out of bed. My alarm didn't go off, she gasped as she saw the time. It was almost 11. No, 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 no. She quickly gnawed enough clothes to just cover her up and rushed out the bedroom and headed towards the front door. But as she walked, she stopped and noticed the hallway was clear of clutter. She looked back in the bedroom where piles of dirty laundry were, and there were no piles. She opened her dresser and everything was neatly folded and put away. Taking a shirt, she sniffed it, and it smelled as clean as when it was new. Mrs. Collins, it's also the sheriff's deputy. Are you home? How? Tanya wondered aloud, but shook her head and headed to the front of her apartment and peered into the peephole, seeing the opposing figure of her landlord, flanked by a county sheriff's deputy, and she could hear their conversation. Now remember, the woman will probably be hysterical at being evicted, so don't be afraid to restrain her, Mr. Collins informed the deputy, as if relishing the thought. Don't tell me how to do my job, the deputy replied sharply. It's going to be a crazy mess, I tell you, and not just the apartment, Mr. Collins grinned slyly. I'm opening up, Tanya announced as she did. Good morning, Mrs. Dmitriev, the deputy announced. I'm here to inspect your apartment for violations. If we find things out of order, you are to be evicted immediately. I understand. Please come in and look around, Tanya said calmly, hoping not to antagonize either man. She did follow them, and while staying a few steps behind to hide her amazement, her couch and living room, originally cluttered with scattered papers and documents, was clear of said papers. They were sitting neatly on the coffee table. The floor looked as pristine as if it was vacuumed. The kitchen no longer had any takeout containers, and as for the dishes, they were stacked neatly in the drying rack by the sink. The garbage can was no longer overflowing, but empty with a fresh bag in it. The linoleum floor was squeaky clean. The kitchen table was clear, and the seat where the Domovoi statue was sitting last night was empty. What's going on, Mrs. Dmitriev? Mr. Collins demanded, turning around to face Tanya. I had this place inspected while you were out of the country. It was a mess. Tanya shrugged. It got better, she grinned. This doesn't seem like the disaster you told me about, Mr. Collins, the deputy pointed out. Bedroom! She couldn't have gotten everything clean in one day, Mr. Collins insisted. Right this way, gentlemen, Tanya led them this time, feeling a burst of confidence. She showed that those two rooms were as pristine as the front half of her apartment. Well, Mrs. Dmitriev, it seems as though your place is as clean as a whistle. No need to evict based on cleanliness violations, the deputy announced, suddenly cheerful and offering his hand. Thank you, deputy. Tanya shook his hand warmly. And before you say anything else, Mr. Collins, I had the rent and late fee. She walked over to where her purse was, sitting on a nightstand, and pulled out the necessary money order. Just need to fill it out, she grinned, clicking a pen, obviously. Looking at Mr. Collins, she could swear she actually see his face turning red with rage as he realized he was losing what he thought was a sure win. Here you go, Tanya said with a smile and a sing-song voice. Mr. Collins snatched it rudely out of her hands. And that means you can't evict her based on late rent, the deputy concluded. Plus, she doesn't seem to be the hysterical, possibly dangerous woman you warned me about, he continued. By the way, how would you know if she couldn't have cleaned it all in one day? I think if one works hard enough, you'd be surprised at what they can accomplish. Because she's been in and out all day yesterday, and not once did I see any trips to the dumpster with trash. How did you do it? Mr. Collins demanded. So you admit to spying on your tenant? That's not good. For you, the deputy leered at the landlord who suddenly paled. I had every right to. Save it for the court date. That is assuming Mrs. Dmitriev wishes to press charges. I think I will, Tanya said affirmatively. Arthur, Mr. Collins, you need to come with me, the deputy announced before starting to read the Miranda rights. Then he turned back to Tanya. I heard about your recent loss. I'm sorry. I know Mr. Collins made things worse, and he can still make things difficult, even with this arrest. There is a new neighborhood on the east end of town. Their one-bedroom apartments are decently priced. The owner even announced his recent marriage to his longtime partner. Just something to think about. Have a good day, ma'am. With that, the deputy departed with a silently fuming Mr. Collins. Tanya went back inside and closed and locked her door and let out a deep breath she didn't even realize she held in before letting out a loud cheer. I made it! I made it! I made it! She turned to the living room and saw the Dumbledore statue on the couch, in a lying position with a wink on its face, his finger pointing to a picture on the wall. Tanya's gaze wandered and she saw the first picture of Alexandra Hain when they first moved in. It was of her family back in Russia, and in the center of the picture was a younger Alexandra, and on her shoulders was the Dumbledore statue with an expression of pride on its face and its arms wide to the whole family, as if ready to protect them at a moment's notice. It really was you, wasn't it? Tanya turned to the Dumbledore. Alexandra sent you to help me because she knew how horrible Mr. Collins would be. You're like the family's guardian angel or something, aren't you? She walked back to the couch and closed her eyes, embracing it. Thank you, she whispered. She was surprised at the tiny arms embracing her back and a kind grandfatherly voice whispering, any time. That's it.
Nice.
I love that story so much.
I'm glad you love it. That one was for you, Friday.
Thank you.
Friday on a Sunday.
Story.
Yeah. And I think we got Jody up next.
Yep.
Oh yeah.
Nice.
Okay, so I have been working on writing a little bit of a biography of my background, mainly to help others on a healing journey. Oh, I don't like my face so big. Sorry. So this was an experience I had, and it's going to be part of my story. I'm just working on the wording for it, but I'm going to tell my first adventure chasing the psychedelic caterpillar. And so I was hanging out with a bunch of my friends, and I got to go stay with my cousin at Uncle Joe's. And we had this wonderful idea to go out in the field and get psychedelic little treats and go for a hike. And we went for quite a hike. And I remember telling my cousin, like, this isn't working. I don't know what the big hype is. And out of nowhere, it hit me like a ton of bricks. So there were a bunch of leaves because it was almost fall. And they looked like beetles. And they were just beautiful. And I dove in them and hurt myself, but laughed the whole time. Then I got up and unfortunately, Mother Nature called and everybody was laughing at me and I had no sense of what was going on. I was really on the moon. And apparently I had started walking and never pulled my britches up. And I look back at that and why it's so funny, and part of what I'm sharing in my biography is because it was the only time, believe it or not, that I genuinely at that age enjoyed myself. We got back to the farm and the greatest thing happened. Honestly, if you can envision being at the carnival and on that, I don't remember what they call that ride, but the one that spins really fast and then goes the other way. And Uncle Joe put us in the big tractor bucket. And I honestly felt like I was a kid at a carnival and the freest I felt. So, long story short, it was a crazy, fun, wild ride, but also I've never chased the psychedelic caterpillar again. But it just goes to show that no matter what anybody chooses to escape, I found freedom and, believe it or not, strength from that experience. So I just wanted to share that. And if anybody has anything related that they'd like to privately share with me, I'm all ears. Thank you, guys.
It's pretty awesome, man. Chase that caterpillar. And it's like a metaphor for life, though, if you think about it.
Facts.
Oh yeah.
I have stories along that vein, but I'm not quite comfortable sharing them.
I have a lot of them. I've shared one or two in the past. But I have a very large amount of them.
I just worry it's gonna be like, you did what now for my family or something. Be like, no.
I don't have much family, and what I do have don't watch this shit anyways. And I really don't think it would surprise them.
Be like, that was during those years that we didn't really hang out, remember?
I have never met the psychedelic caterpillar, and I have tried herb before. That was fun. I missed that.
The herb.
The herb's awesome.
All right. Who did we have that needed to go up next?
Is it me or Ron?
Initially, it was Ron, I believe.
Okay.
Pal, you can go. I'm not in a rush.
Oh, you're fine. I mean, we put you up first.
Put
Go for it, buddy. I want to hear you.
Oh boy.
I want to stare at that glittering head.
Yeah, great.
Is that a Stargate behind you?
No, it's the cover of my book.
Oh, okay. Oh, okay.
It's
Sorry.
a keyhole into a padded cell. Can't you tell?
Oh, okay. Now I can tell, yeah.
Or a keyhole out of a padded cell, depending on which side you're on.
Or from one cell to another cell.
Or freedom. All right. I have to give some background on the story. This is something I wrote back when I was in college for one of my creative writing classes. For those that don't know, I did major in creative writing, which required reading a lot of literature. One of the things that we had to read was The Metamorphosis by Franz Kafka. If you're not familiar with The Metamorphosis, the main character, Gregor, starts turning into a cockroach. I won't go into the details on it, but suffice to say, it was supposed to be a statement on social whatever. It's been a long time. So our assignment was to write a transformation story a la The Metamorphosis. Now, at the time that I was in college, there was a local band that played called The Goodies, which it's very eclectic kind of music, which they called vaudeville rock. They're out of Asheville, North Carolina, and yes, they do still perform. If you go to YouTube, I'm sure you can probably find videos. The lead singer of the band, Stephen Childers, is a natural falsetto. They have a song called Plastic, which the lyrics say, I want to be plastic. I think that's what I'll do. I want to be plastic and a plastic girlfriend. Plastic hairdo, plastic forehead. I want to be plastic. I want to be with you. So for whatever reason, my demented brain merged these two concepts together. And this story is about a man who's turning plastic. It's called Plastic Holiday. Did it ever occur to you that you might be turning plastic? What? But that's impossible. Mr. Holliday looked at his position and blinked several times, as if he didn't recognize the man. How can you turn plastic? Now, calm down, Bill. They haven't quite put a name to it yet, but I mean, turning plastic. It's a perfectly normal thing. Dr. Good was just as shocked as his patient, but he didn't want to say anything for fear of causing a bad reaction. He thought if he played it cool, everything would be all right. What? Mr. Holliday shouted, not realizing the intentions of his doctor. He was in total disbelief. Many people have lived perfectly decent, normal lives in this condition, said the physician, still trying to play it off. Mr. Holliday slowly began to calm down. So you've seen this before? He asked with skepticism. Well, no, but that's what I thought, replied Mr. Holliday. Right. It had all started about a week ago. Bill Holliday had awakened that morning with a curious sensation gnawing in his right forearm. He couldn't quite name what it was, but it had been constant throughout the day. By dinner time, he had noticed his arm had become glossed over with some sort of shimmering film, but the sensation had subsided by bedtime, so he put it out of his mind. However, by next morning, when he woke up, the feeling had returned, only now a little more nagging. It wasn't exactly a pain, however, just this general numbing sensation, somewhat like the feeling you get if you've been sitting in the same position for too long and your legs have gone stiff. Except this sensation felt more tingling, but not like the tingling sensation you feel when you finally stand up and let the blood flow back to your legs. No, this sensation was... Well, Bill didn't exactly have a word to describe it, but the feeling had persisted for a week. Each morning he would wake up and find that part of his body was glossed over with a light film. It wasn't remarkably noticeable, though. By wearing a long-sleeved shirt and slacks, he was able to hide the truth. But if anything, the sensations were growing stronger, though not to the point of unbearable yet. However, Bill did not want to take any chances. He finally decided to see his physician, Dr. Elias Good. You're turning plastic, said Dr. Good. Plastic, mumbled Mr. Holliday. And how does this happen? Well, doctors have been studying this phenomenon. I read an article just the other day saying that plastic was the way of the future. The doctor did not think it prudent to inform his patient that the article was in a technology magazine and not a doctor's journal. In fact, you may be very well ahead of the trend, Bill. By the time we all go plastic, you'll already have a step up. Mr. Holliday was still not amused or impressed. And this is good. How? He was getting slightly agitated. Well, said the doctor, looking for a bright and optimistic response, it's not like you're dying. He wasn't dying. Quite the opposite, in fact. He felt in better condition than he had in nearly 10 years. Dr. Good had prescribed some mild pain relievers, but could not think of much else to do since no one had ever had to deal with someone turning plastic before. The drugs didn't help. The sensations continued. Sometimes Bill would stand and study himself in the mirror. By now, his entire body was coated with this amazingly slick film. It hadn't even been a full month yet, and his right forearm, where the transformation had originally begun, the film had gotten thicker. Now it was a shiny, luminescent substance that created colorful streaks when it refracted light. But his arm was still entirely intact, and he had noticed a new flexibility he had never had before. He could now reach down and scratch that insatiable itch on that previously unreachable area of his back. Except the itch had somehow subsided, practically with all other sense of touch as well. Bill really felt nothing now except that numbing sensation. Strangely enough, it had never been unbearable, and at some points, Bill subconsciously found himself enjoying it. The film had reached his face finally. It wasn't extremely noticeable at first. He only looked as if he were mildly sweating, and even then, only under bright light. Up to this point, no one had questioned his new luminescence, but as the film thickened, the appearance of sweat was more noticeable until finally it looked as if the sweat had just solidified on his face. Of course, the good side to this was that Bill realized he no longer needed to shave, which was a blessing in disguise, for he had never cared much for shaving anyway. Mr. Holliday worked for a network consulting agency. It was a mediocre 9-to-5 job that was the same humdrum day in, day out. One day, Bill walked into his 5th floor office building. Usually no one ever spoke to him except maybe the casual, "Hi, Bill," without even looking up from their computer screens. Bill almost never greeted them back, just like everyone else in the office. He was also locked into the corporate world of dullness and a dead-end job where outgoingness gets you weird looks and shunned by others. Conformity was the key to success. But this particular day, he was happy. He was smiling. As he smoothly walked toward his office cubicle, he noticed Bella, the cute redhead who worked 3 cubicles down. Even though Bella tried her best to fit the conformist attitude of the office, she was still the most outgoing of any there. She and Bill had talked sometimes at length during office parties. Bill had often thought about asking her out, though he could never quite get up the nerve. He knew she led a secret life outside of the office that he was afraid he may not fit into. Bella saw him approaching and turned to give him the once-over. Bill wondered again about the nature of her secret life, and perhaps it was the confidence that came with his newfound plasticity, but he decided to make it a point to find out what that secret life was. "Good morning, Bill," she said sweetly with wind chimes for her voice. "Wow, you look different today. Have you been working out?" She was still giving him the once-over. Bill smiled and tried to hold back his embarrassment. He failed, but due to his luminescent cheeks, he realized he was incapable of truly blushing. He considered this another blessing. "Why, no," he replied, and then he couldn't help himself. "I'm turning plastic." He finished literally beaming. His translucent skin was shimmering in the light. "Oh, Bill, you're such a kidder," she replied. She gave him a flirting push on the shoulder and walked off laughing. Bill felt good about himself. Later that day, one of Bill's friends, George, had invited him to play racquetball after work. Bill had already been having a good day, and Bella had even flirted with him more, commenting on how muscular he seemed to look and how vibrant his skin seemed. Whenever Bill mentioned he was turning plastic, no one took him seriously. Bill, eager to try out his new condition with athletic skills, decided to give racquetball a try. He had never been much into sports, nor had he ever played racquetball before, but he noticed he was significantly more agile on his feet and, in fact, never broke a sweat. And by the end of 6 straight games, he found he wasn't even breathing heavy. "How do you do it, Bill?" George asked. "I thought I was in good shape, but you just wiped the floor with me." "Well, George," he replied, "I'm turning plastic." They both laughed, and Bill Holliday drove home in a good mood for once. There was an accident the other day. Bill was leaving his apartment to head for work when a speeding car veered around the corner and smacked dead on to him. He didn't even have time to scream or gasp or even make a face of fright. Boing! And he just went flying through the air. The driver had slammed on his brakes and didn't have time to react with a gasp and a scream and a contorted facial expression. But when he saw Bill hit the pavement, bounce like a basketball, land on his feet, and brush the dust off, he was speechless. The driver was stunned, but in his racing mind, he figured if nothing happened, there was no need to let the world know. He pulled himself under control, slowly started his car, and drove up beside Mr. Holliday. "Are you okay, mister?" the driver asked. "Yes, why, thank you," chirped Bill. "I saw you hit the concrete like that, and I wasn't sure if you were hurt." No, I'm fine. You see, I'm turning plastic." "Oh, okay then. Well, you have a wonderful day," the driver said as he sped off down the road, and it would be several minutes before the meaning of Bill's statement took hold inside of him. "You too," called Bill after him. The transformation was finally complete. Bill had gone back to see Dr. Good a few more times just for a checkup. The doctor had taken x-rays for his medical logs, and they showed that everything was still intact, if not slightly more malleable. Plastic does not photograph very well under radiation, but it was still possible to see where everything should be by the outlines. Dr. Good listened to his patient's heartbeat through a stethoscope, and it seemed to be beating normally, and perhaps even better than normally. Of course, trying to take a blood test failed since Bill had no blood, only a clear, odorless liquid that tended to solidify if exposed to air for too long. "What do you think caused it, Doc?" Bill asked during one visit. "Hard to say," mused the doctor. "The transformation could be psychologically induced." "How do you figure?" asked Bill. "I've read some psychiatric cases of people who get stuck in a dead-end job and a boring everyday routine. They get so sick of their lives, they eventually sell off everything they own and move to a tropical island somewhere and drink margaritas on the beach all day. Turning plastic could be your way of dealing with the monotony of your own job. Maybe you should think about taking a vacation yourself. How long has it been since you've taken one?" "I don't know," replied Bill. "Maybe 5 years." "There you go. My advice would be to prescribe a vacation for you. Brazil is nice this time of year." Mr. Holliday was in the best shape of his life and feeling it. He felt like he could do anything. Pain was a thing of the past. To celebrate his newfound condition, Bill decided to heed his doctor's advice, take his leave time accumulated from work, and go on vacation. He decided Brazil did seem like a nice place this time of year, and it was a place he had always wanted to visit but never would afford himself the luxury. Bill wondered if Bella had ever been to Brazil. Perhaps now was the time to ask her out. That night, Bill dreamed, with fantasies of plastic beaches where plastic females slowly melted in the heat playing in his mind's eye. Bill and Bella boarded the plane with plastic credit cards in hand. Once again, he was feeling good. It being plastic was the way of the future, he thought. Someone would have to lead the way. Bill decided he was the best man for the job.
Yay.
Nice. It's all right.
I love
Turning
that.
plastic.
Just turning plastic, dude.
No worries.
That was really fun. I like the boing. Oh, apparently my Echo Dot enjoyed it as well.
Yeah, I'm thinking about putting that one in my next collection of stories to publish.
I like it, man.
I think you should. I like
It's
it.
only
That's
about
a good
2,000
story.
words, so I feel like I could expand on it a lot and just put Bill in different situations that would, test his plasticity.
Again,
Or how about
how
situations
Starbucks.
where his plasticity would be a disadvantage? Like if he wants to go swimming, he can't go underwater, for example.
Because he would float.
He is buoyant.
Yep.
True.
He's too buoyant. He can't go swimming or something.
So
yeah,
we got Pile Up next.
Yep. And I'm going to try something totally different because I used to do a couple of things on the radio station, and when we did stuff on the radio station, you could never ever see me, right? So we're going to try this.
The heck?
So this was Johnny. And when I did the radio station, I'd always call in and go,
hello, this is Johnny down here at local Walmart. And I just wanted to tell you about this wonderful situation we got going on here. I don't know if it's wonderful. It is Black and Blue Friday. Well, I guess it's just Black Friday. And I just want to tell everybody, please put your cards away, because if you don't put your cards away, what's going to end up happening is they're going to end up going and hitting all the other cars. And I worry about other cars all the time. So I come to Walmart all the time, and I hope that you guys put your cards away. And if you don't, it's okay. But if you see me at Walmart, I'm the guy that's on the lawnmower just driving around. I got my Christmas lights on, and I can't make them blink because they're not the blinking kind. So what I've been doing is I've been plugging them in, unplugging, plugging them in, unplugging. So that way we have blinking lights, that way you can see me on my mower.
The ironic thing about this whole thing was when I did this at the radio station, the DJ absolutely loved it. He played it because I left it on his voicemail. When he put it on the voice, or he actually played it, Walmart actually sent some of their people out to see if they could find the guy on the lawnmower. So he called me up and said, "Hey, is there any opportunity you can call again?" And I said, "Yeah, I can do that." And I did. And I said,
I'm on here on the backside of Walmart, just checking it out right now. And I'm trying to see if, as soon as all the cars clear out, I'm going to see if I can get myself a good deal. I know Black and Blue Friday is here, and they got some great deals on some tires. And I'm hoping that they can make some room and change the oil in my lawnmower.
To my knowledge, that's the end of it. But unfortunately, Walmart called the radio station and flat out acknowledged that there was so many people that was looking for this guy. So we went ahead and we posted this picture, a picture kind of like this, on the radio station, just telling them, "Hey, this is who we're looking for. And if you guys can find him, please let us know where you found him." And about 3 weeks later, I did another call in with the radio station, and they said, "Hey, do you think you can talk about dog license?" I said, "Yeah." And I said,
yeah, I had to go to the animal shelter and go get my dog license. And I was kind of upset. And then I went and I bought 2 licenses, one for my dog and one for my other pet. And I was really super excited because this other pet of mine, he doesn't mind being outside. Everybody just lets him alone. Once in a while, I'll stick him and I'll put him out where people can touch him and they can pet him. And he doesn't mind this kind of weather. And the reason he does it is because he's my pet rock. And I wanted to make sure that my pet rock could enjoy the company of people. So I got him a doggy license too. And I don't have a cat because cats just, they look at me weird. And it's almost like some of the people that look at me too.
But just going on the radio station, you don't see the people, you don't understand what they look like, this and that. If they post pictures on their website, it's great. But I remember I got another phone call and it said, "Hey, can you do us another favor? Here we are, we're coming up to Christmas. Can you go ahead and do us a big, huge favor?" I said, "Yeah, what you need this time?" And what they said was, can you unwrap some presents on the radio? And I was like, "Yeah, I can do that." So I went,
here, I'm Johnny again, just calling in, and I'm really glad that everybody got me some Christmas presents, and I think it's wonderful. And here, let me go ahead and open one up. Yep, let me open. Oh my gosh, I tore the paper. I wanted to save that. Oh, you know what? It's going to be great no matter what. Oh my gosh, you guys really care about me so much. I got myself, oh man, look, you guys can't see it, but I got myself a nice coffee cup. And oh my gosh, you guys are awesome to me. And I don't know how to thank everybody that's been thinking of me. And if you want to give something away for Christmas, that's perfectly fine. You can help. Oh, you know what? I got another one here. Let's open this one up. Oh my gosh. That's great. It's a bar of soap. I have plenty of soap, but it's the thought that counts. That's all I can really say is the thought. So hopefully everybody enjoyed me, and I want to come back and enjoy ourselves and this and that.
But yeah, I just, you know what? that is what I wanted to talk about and why I wanted to do my story on, because honestly, I don't think anybody really puts any thought into how radio shows operate. And if you're ever doing pieces of paper or ripping open presents, they might not actually have the present in front of them. It's just pieces of paper, which when I found that out, I was kind of sad. And yes, Johnny is a very nervous individual. He's very,
I hope everybody enjoys us and enjoys this wonderful time that we spent together. And you know what? You're watching the Allied Network.
That's what I got, guys.
Nice. I liked it.
Oh my god. That was awesome.
The fact that people thought he was a real person and was looking for him, that's what gets me.
They were so concerned about Johnny, and the radio station's like, dude, they're out looking for you. I was at work doing this, calling in and going,
yeah, this is Johnny just doing your report. Please put your cards away. I almost seen one hit somebody.
If we could get somebody to animate Johnny in a cartoon fashion and have you do a voiceover for a promo for Owlite, that would be great.
That would be awesome.
I'm just telling you, it's not really hard. I mean, you just go and go,
you're watching the Allied Network on one of your wonderful platforms, and we're having ourselves a great time. And just wait until I get myself on that padded cell.
There's a guy in Herman, Nebraska that rides around in a golf cart. He can't use it. Or no, wait, I thought it was a golf cart. I think it is a lawnmower, but he built like an awning over it, and he used to ride around with a parrot on his shoulder. I don't know if it was alive or not. And like I saw him once going through Dakema, and I told my mom, I'm like, did you see the old guy with the beard and I thought it was a golf cart at the time, with the parrot? And she's like, what? And so like nobody believed me. And then I brought it up to some cousins who live around there, and they're like, oh yeah, that's old so and so. We always he can't drive anymore because he had a stroke, so he just drives his lawnmower around, and we build him a thing to have over it, and everybody makes sure he gets home on time and stuff, and keeps an eye out for him. But he just likes to drive around town on his lawnmower and check everybody out.
Wow.
It happens. It's a real thing.
Yes.
So this is why people really. I love I couldn't get him to blink, so I just plugged him in and unplugged.
I plugged them in and I unplugged them, plugged them back in and unplugged them. And I hope you all can see me, and please put your cards away because I don't want them going and dinging a car or taking me out off the mower.
Nice.
I had to do something different. You guys all read wonderful stories, and I was just like, I'm just going to throw Johnny at this. Let me draw him again.
Okay, so when all else fails, throw Johnny at it. That's the new philosophy.
Oh yeah, we could have stories by Johnny, and that's if you guys like me. If not, I'll just go back in my corner.
You should totally do that voice for Chainer.
No.
One night.
Boom, boom, boom.
I'm gonna tear you up, mister.
All right.
I think I'm gonna bow out now. I have an early day tomorrow, and I'm starting to slow down. So
okay.
Have a good night. Thank you for reading the story.
Thank you for having me.
Mountain Dew just came out of my nose. I'm not gonna lie.
What was the cause of that?
Come on, Dr. Raz. Can you talk to me about it?
Oh, you went off camera. Oh, boy.
Today in the Dr. Johnny show.
No, he's just illustrating the boom, boom, boom. Does the voice, and I laughed so hard. I had just taken a drink about to do it. It actually came through my nose. And it burnt a lot, and I couldn't stop coughing.
All right, and that's our show.
Good night.
Good night, everybody.
My eyes are watering that too.
we are an hour into things. I believe it is time that we should throw up some ads real quick.
Sure,
So
probably
if
is.
anybody needs to run to the restroom, or I mean, check out our ads, of
Wheel
course.
to the restroom.
Yeah. All right.
Greetings and shabebans. We are the Retro Reductopus Cephala Podcast, a long-form bi-weekly show that celebrates all the things that made growing up awesome.
Well, that sounds good, but I don't know what all those words mean.
I think what Parasite Steve's trying to say is that on Retro Reductopus, we explore a range of retro goodness, from toys, video games, and movies, to cartoons, and even snacks and school lunches.
Oh. And we do it all with a positive spin, a slew of killer guests, and some very adult language.
And you know what else is cool?
No.
This crazy show is part of the Dorking Podcast Network with new episodes every Tentacle Tuesday.
What's that?
And if waiting 2 weeks for a new episode gives you a sad, know that we drop bonus episodes all the time, like the off-format Crow's Nest and an interview series we call The Brig.
You can listen to Retro Reductopus on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, or any app that's cool enough to carry the only show that celebrates all the things that make growing up awesome.
Oh, I was trying to get one more going. I missed it. I'm going to do it anyway. So there.
Nope.
There's a secret sound hidden deep within the center of the earth. Until you listen closely enough, you can hear it. And it sounds like razors through flesh. We are merely here to turn up the volume.
Oh my gosh, I just love that.
That sounds like razors through flesh.
Man, it
You
makes
guys know
me
that's
tingle.
me, right?
Yes.
Okay.
It's on my Spotify playlist.
Fred did not realize that that was me, and I'd used it for a different portion of it for haunt commercials. And when he played it at the banquet last night for Channers, Fred was sitting next to me. He's like, kept looking at me, looking at the screen. I was like, "You recognize it, don't you?" He's like, "Yeah, didn't you use that for an ad?" I was like, "Dude, that's my voice." He's like, "No." I'm like, "Yeah, man, that was me a long time ago."
And how many times did we play that last night?
A bunch. Weird news, though. I found out that it wasn't my guitarist that had been putting things up there. None of us can figure out who it was, because my guitarist freak just started getting a hold of me about a week or so ago, wanting to do new studio material. So there is a weird and slim chance that I might be going back to music temporarily.
Nice.
Yeah, it's weird.
That was rough.
Super weird.
Well, you can make some music for the movie that we're working on.
Maybe. We'll see how it goes. Gonna need a drummer, though. You know, hint, hint.
I might know one.
I sure hope so. If not, I can take a 5-gallon bucket and some sticks, and I can go tot 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 tot.
Nice.
I was just listening to Blackheart Boys Choir last night, and it was the chapter when Asher breaks out the gift from his dad, and he's like looking at it, and they're like, "You know, I think this piece does need some percussion." And they're just like, "Yeah." So I don't know. Read the book, guys. Get it. I have like 4 different copies of it. They're all different.
And speaking
But
of stories, I think you had volunteered to go next.
yes, I will.
Volunteer tribute.
I am tribute. Okay, so this takes place back in the early to mid 90s. And this is something that actually happened to me. It was really weird. I've told you guys some things that happened around the town of Fremont. And this was one of those things that happened there. And first off, I had a really fun friend. And like, I know that when you reach a certain age, apparently you're supposed to stop playing things like fun games, or at least that's what a lot of, it's like, that's what you do when you're a kid. But we would go out to like parks in the middle of the night, and there was one of those things where you had like tires that you could climb up and little wooden rafter or wooden walkways and all this different stuff. And we were sitting around and we were playing house, and we were like, oh, this is the house and stuff. And I'm like, you need to get a better job. And he's like, why is that? I'm like, because we need walls. And this was the kind of like stuff that we would do. We would just be goofy as shit and hang out and play. And he was like, hey, do you want to go out and check out this old house that, like, I know a bunch of people go out there and go drinking and stuff, and like, it's just, a couple miles out of town. I was just like, oh, sure, yeah, that sounds cool, we'll go check it out, why not? And we'd been having this super fun night up until then, just being totally goofy. And I'm gonna call him Brian. Brian and I get out to this place, and it's like this yellow house on a farm that's out kind of in the middle of nowhere. And when you drive onto the property, there's like the house is to your right, and then further back, there are barns and stuff, and a little bit to the left, there's some like grain silos and corn cribs, as we call them, the ones that have the meshing around kind of instead of being a solid building. And they're checking out. It was kind of creepy looking, but it was just like, okay, well, we're gonna have some fun here. He's like, oh yeah, everybody goes in, and there's like people go up there and drink and everything. And I was like, okay, well, let's check it out. And so we walk in, and you enter into the kitchen area, and it wasn't really well maintained. Obviously, it had been abandoned for a while, and he didn't know any stories behind it. He just knew people went there to drink. And I was immediately drawn to kind of check, to go off to the left and walk around, and you pass through a little area, and then you get into the living room, and it was kind of a dark living room, had a sofa sitting facing where the TV stand and stuff would probably have been if it hadn't been kind of ransacked a bit. And then there were a flight of stairs that went up, and along the railing that you could walk, and there were 3 rooms, and then another one off to the other side that would go over where the living room was. And so we went up there and walked, and he was like, yeah, this is where everybody hangs out, is in this one, because it has the windows on both sides. I look in, and it's just, it looks kind of like a squatter's place. It's got a mattress on the floor, a bunch of beer bottles laying around and stuff. He's like, and people, some people use the other rooms, but mostly everybody hangs out in here. But we didn't bring any beer with us or anything. We were just checking out the house. And so I walk on and look into the next room. Kind of the same thing. Nothing really special about it. And same with the third room. And when we got to the very end of the hallway and got ready to open the door on the left, something just froze. And I mean, like, it felt like I'd been being led by something all the way through here. And I couldn't figure out why it was like the temperature just dropped immediately, and the entire mood of the house completely shut down on me, and it was super oppressive. And we opened the door, and I saw something moving, and all of a sudden I looked straight up, and the ceiling went on forever, and there was just this blackness. And suddenly something screaming and hanging from a rope came dropping down straight at me and just scared the living piss out of me. And I saw this thing falling straight at me. It was obvious as it was getting closer. It was a decomposing person with just this horrible shriek. And I slammed the door on that room and started bolting back for the staircases, and I could see blood everywhere. Like in the rooms that we'd left the doors open to, there were like dead beings inside and blood splatters on the wall. When we got to the stairs, I was actually slipping on them because what went from being this just old staircase was suddenly a coated in blood staircase, and I'm holding on as I get down. You can see on the um, floors in the living room where somebody had fallen and like a big pouring out of blood around them. And I had grabbed Brian, just like bolted out, got into the car. And as we're getting in the car and I'm driving as far away as possible, something comes rushing like up from the corn crib area and stuff. It was like the whole farm. There was just this like an exhale of evil or something to just get the fuck out of there, like chasing. And Uncle Necro will be the only one who really knows what I'm saying when I do this, but I drove all the way to Columbus to get away from this. And it was on the east side of Fremont. And so I drove like on the highway all the way around far west. I think it's like 40 miles or something like that before I could catch my breath again, and was finally okay. And he was just like, what in the hell? And I was explaining to him as as we were driving, like what had fucked me up, but I still felt like I was being chased half that time. And I finally got back, after I calmed down and everything. And I was talking with one of my other friends about it a couple days later because I was just like, God, this place really freaked me out. And they're like, I started describing, they're like, oh, the old yellow house off by blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, yeah. And they're like, yeah, that place is haunted as fuck. Because, and I was like, well, what's the deal? And they were explaining it to me, and I would chalk it up to urban legend, except the person who was explaining it to me had actually done some research, and they weren't able to find everything about it, but they had found out that there had been a family there that had been murdered by the son. And I joke that he Amityville'd them all, but basically he did. And then he hung himself. He was on PCP apparently, and he hung himself from the top of the corn crib. And they cut him down, but they left some of the rope up there. And so one of my friends who'd been out exploring the place, I have no idea why you would do this, but climbed up to the top because it's not hard, it's wire around the thing, and retrieved the rope that was left up there and brought it in and had left it. They were just fucking around playing with the house and had left it in that final bedroom. So that's why apparently that had been his room in the house. And so that's apparently why he was tied to both the room in the house as well as just the farm entirely itself. So that is another story of fucked up shit that happens in Nebraska. And something, like I said, I would have considered it to be a complete urban legend had I not known the people who researched it and were able to say, oh no, yeah, this happened in the newspapers, but they left out some things. So yep, that's my story for the night.
Nice. It's been a while since I've heard that one.
It was pretty scary. And it was weird because Brian couldn't see it, but other people had, so they were able to describe to me, like, it was another one of those things where, like, let me cut you off. You saw this, this, and this, right? So it was like having the shared experience part of it. Is that something I always count on for, like, was this just me? Was this, I had no history of it, so it wasn't like I was predisposed towards thinking about it, but knowing that other people could describe to me exactly what I saw because they had seen it as well.
Right.
I like that reinforcement. Make sure I'm not crazy.
Yeah,
Fucked up shit that happens in Nebraska sounds like it'd be a good title for a docu-series. Maybe you should pitch that idea to Hulu.
Well, I used to have this book called Haunted Heartland, and Fremont, Nebraska features a pretty decent chunk in there And my favorite haunting from that town is Bernard Park, which is smack dab in the middle of Fremont.
The one with the gazebo and everything?
Yeah, the gazebo that's like right off of Military and Clarkson.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Several pioneers were buried in that. A lot of Mormons were on their way to Utah, I believe, were camping out there and did not survive the winter. So a lot of them were buried, and they say that sometimes late at night you can see the mother, spirit of the mother, like wailing and wandering about.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I didn't know that. I know that park very well because my my sister took piano lessons from Mr. Tui, and he lived like right next to the park. So when she would had to babysit some kids, like we'd take the kids to the park, and we taught this one little girl to say gazebo because she couldn't say the word. But then she was just going over to her mom, like, why does she not stop saying gazebo? Because we introduced her to a gazebo. Gazebo.
It's fun to say. I mean,
It is.
Gazebo.
Burbus font. Okay. Squirrelin'. Squirrelin',
I think
squirrelin'.
we have James up next.
Well, tonight I don't present a reading of a story. I'm just going to tell you a bit about my, I hasten to say the word love affair with music, but how important it was and when exactly it factored into being a major part of my life. Growing up, I am told that as a wee lad, I was always wanting to entertain people. As a toddler, apparently my favorite song was Do Run Run. I don't know who the artist was, but it's a 60s song. A do run, 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 a do run, run. You're welcome for my singing voice. But I would just, if there were like more than just my parents around, I would grab a pencil and then use the eraser as kind of like pretend it's a microphone and start singing and dancing for them. As well as with reading, my parents instilled a love of music. However, they were more into the 70s, what I call the 70s gold, AM gold stuff. Their record collection, while my mom was a big fan of Elvis, she was also a big fan of the Letterman. You just look him up. And my father liked what was on the radio. But at the age of 9, in Christmas of 1982, I received my first radio. It was a gray, one-speaker AM/FM shelf radio, Radio Shack emblazoned on it. And at first, I was all right with it. I didn't know why I received something like that because at the age of 9, I was still kind of into toys, and I just received my first batch of He-Man toys. But in January of 1983, I plugged it in and was just kind of bopping through the tuning, see what happened. And my first song, the first song that I heard that really grabbed me was Shame on the Moon by Bob Seger. The reason why it grabbed me was essentially Do Run Run by the Crystals. Okay, thank you, Raz. But it was the sound, the very low key. If you've ever heard the song, if you've never heard it, go ahead and look it up sometime. But it's haunting. The music, the music that they play, and the mournfulness of Bob Seger's voice as he's singing about. Well, it's about infidelity, but the way he sang it made me feel something that I've never really felt before. And I remember thinking, I want more of this. So I stayed on that station. Turned out to be top 40 rock station, which in the early 80s pop music was really beginning to hit its stride. I remember discovering I didn't know the names of the bands that were playing or the songs, but I do. I figured all this out years later, but I remember playing the radio all night while I was sleeping, and while I was falling asleep, I would listen to the likes of "Hungry by the Wolf" by Duran Duran, being told to don't turn around by after the fire because the Dear Karmasar is in town. I had no idea that it was a remake, but I just know the feeling it gave me while listening to it. There was kind of a sinister edge that I enjoyed, even at the age of 9. Don't know why, but Witchy Woman. Of course, Michael Jackson. That was around the time when Billie Jean was really taking off, and I remember first hearing that opening bass line. It just struck a chord inside of me. I hasten to say like it was a drug, but that's exactly what it was for me anyway. I remember the song "Heart Attack" by Olivia Newton-John was one of her minor hits, but I love that song. "Solitaire" and then just so many songs that I remember listening to and loving, and not knowing who the artist was, and the title of the songs until years later. And that was also about the time when I started experiencing my first bouts of depression without knowing exactly what I was going through. And the music, every time I would go to school, I would just wait, suffer through the day until I was back into my room and listening to the music. Then after my parents got divorced, we moved back from the state of Washington, where I was, to Nebraska, back to the farm here. And the first thing I tried to do was find a radio station that was comparable. Now, around here in eastern Nebraska, you had your top 40 pop station, which was a couple of them. The more popular one was Sweet 98. And you also had the AOR station, Z92. I gravitated more towards Z92, which means that my friends in grade school, and I went to a small farm type of school, which only had 2 rooms in the building, the lower room and the upper room. When I was in the upper room, all of the older kids, they listened to Sweet 98, and I listened to Z92. So they were talking about all of their favorite pop songs of the time, and here I was talking about Bruce Springsteen, various other, just general rock, album-oriented rock bands that they didn't really get into. But I also listened to a bit of The Police. Duran Duran was always a big factor in there. Bruce Springsteen. I wore out the tape of Born in the USA. I know it's not a very popular one, but it got me into it. It helped me escape the darkness of living that I was going through. And my parents, I remember, got me a cassette of Wham's "Make It Big," which, at that age, I was pretty much at the mercy of what my parents decided what was appropriate for me to listen to as far as buying music. They were the ones buying the music. I talked them into once buying a copy of Prince's 1999, which was phenomenal. It turned me on to Prince, made me a Prince fanatic like I am right now. But with Bruce Springsteen and it was Wham that actually got me into metal. And by that I mean one Saturday afternoon, I was outside of my grandparents' place. I was listening to the Make It Big album on one of those Radio Shack mono tape players, desktop tape players that they have, and just kind of sitting outside, hanging out. My Uncle Jerry, who was only 12 years older than I am, he comes up, listens to what I was hearing, and he's like, "Could I take a listen to what you're listening to?" And I was elated that my uncle was taking an interest in what I was doing. So I gave him the copy of Wham and also my copy of the Bruce Springsteen album that was in my pocket. And he went to his VW microbus that he restored himself, got in, popped first the Wham tape in the tape player, listened for a few seconds, then ejected it, put in Bruce Springsteen, listened for a few seconds, and ejected it. Rifles in a console in the van for a couple of minutes. Then he exits the vehicle, comes up to me and hands me two other cassettes as well as my cassettes. So he's like, "Here, you can have these, listen to these." And that was, one of them was AC/DC's Highway to Hell. The other was Ted Nugent's Double Live Gonzo album. The first one I listened to was AC/DC. I had never heard of either one of these. My parents were a little dubious about my Uncle Jerry doing this, but I said, "Look, you know, if I don't like it, I'll get rid of them, but I got to at least listen to them." And I popped in Highway to Hell. I hit play. I remember hearing the opening chord of the title song, just da-na-na, and then suddenly I went through puberty prematurely. My testes dropped. My voice became a lower register. Hair sprouted on my chest. And all of a sudden, I discovered the power of hard rock. Just hard rock and roll. And I loved it. I wanted more. I didn't really think too much of the Ted Nugent live album too much at the time. I have grown an appreciation for it, but it was AC/DC that really did it in for me. And like, I really need more of this type of stuff. And from there, I discovered in succession Van Halen, who just released their album 1984, which was amazeballs. I mean, that thing just exploded everywhere. And I was hearing the songs Jump and Panama, and I was also talking about them with my friends at school because a couple of them listened to Van Halen themselves. Also in 1984, a little band called Twisted Sister released the video to We're Not Going to Take It, which played on an episode of Friday Night Videos, which was the weekly video show that they played Friday nights in the Midwest. For those of you who never had MTV, that was your way to at least know what was popular in the music video. And then from there, it was, I did rather, right. Thank you, Pyle. But no, from there, it's like Survivor, Foreigner was, yeah, and in some ways Journey, like they were playing on Z92 pretty heavily too, and I really got into those, and then just the emotion and the feeling that I got getting lost and listening to those bands. Going into junior high school, hair metal was really starting to pick up. Junior high, 7th grade, Bon Jovi released Slippery When Wet, which is their pinnacle album ever. That thing is near perfect, I believe. From the opening song all the way to the end, I think the weakest song on there is Social Disease, which it just kind of stops the momentum. It's just kind of goofy, but had they used a different song, it would have been just perfect, I think. But also, I was also, there was Poison that came out, Cinderella. I discovered Kiss through their Smashes, Thrashes, and Hits, greatest hits. Well, I was using cassettes, and of course, Motley Crue was on the radio. From there, I started digging a little bit deeper by reading the rock and roll magazines like Circus, in which I went on to, discover Dokken, Rat. Quiet Riot was played a lot by some of the upperclassmen in the high school, which I really, really dug, especially the Mental Health album. I was a Hessian, and I was developing into quite the Hessian as well, because there was a lot of pop that was being listened to by my fellow classmates. And I soon discovered that I can like stuff and not have to have my tastes dictated to me by either the radio or the school or anybody at school. I was becoming more and more, I wouldn't say alienated, but because of my depression, and I still hadn't gotten a grasp on what was going on or what my condition was. Turns out I do have Tourette syndrome. I've, started manifesting a lot of the tics in 6th grade, leading into 7th grade. But it's a turducken kind of situation where one of the major things that plays into this is the depression, manic depression especially, and music helped to soothe me out of the depression a lot of times. And just listening to the music, the headphones on, kept me from a lot of attempts at just ending the pain right there. Then when I was a freshman, somebody lent me their cassette copy of Metallica's Garage Days Revisited. And suddenly I discovered thrash metal, or speed metal if you wish, and it just blew my mind. Also in 1986, my great aunt Mana bought me a cassette copy of Iron Maiden's Somewhere in Time, which was unlike anything that I was hearing on the radio. This was my first taste of actual metal. I mean, I have a love of hair metal, yes, but sometimes you just gotta crank the new wave of British heavy metal. Sometimes you gotta pop in the Metallica and just the good Metallica, pre-Black Album. Sorry, guys. But in 1989, Christmas of 1989, I was gifted the album And Justice for All, which I listened to front to back so many times in a row. I wore out the tape. The song, especially the songs Frayed Ends of Sanity and To Live Is to Die, really resonated with me because it spoke to me on so many levels that I can feel these things. I'm not alone in feeling these things, but now I have an outlet for this. Later on, a few years later, my friend Dell introduced me to Suicidal Tendencies, which blew things up. Being in the Midwest, I never really understood the dichotomy between metalheads and punk rockers or the hardcore kids. To me, it wasn't really a question of, well, I listen to metal, so I can't listen to punk. I just listened to what I liked. And I didn't, especially in the 90s when everybody was telling me that you can't listen to alternative and metal at the same time. Yes, you can. But that's a story, that's a discussion for another time. And I was starting, I credit that time with, having me look into something more than just what the hair metal was starting to go stagnant. I was discovering a lot of the alternative metals, Suicidal Tendencies, the Faith No More, and I believe, there was I also discovered Anthrax, which was a different kind of thrash. It was more of a punk, hardcore, East Coast hardcore kind of thrash, which with a sense of humor, I should say. And then grunge hit, which I didn't really think of it as such. I didn't think of it as a rock revolution, as so many people has claimed it was. With Nirvana's Nevermind release, I just thought it was another really good hard rock album. It was different, but certain parts of it I really dug, and but what really, really turned me on to what people would call the Seattle sound was Alice in Chains' Facelift. It was dark. It was heavy. It wasn't quite metal, but it wasn't. It was beyond just hard rock. And I really, really, really liked it. And from there, I picked up Soundgarden's Bad Motorfinger, which was really good, by the way. I prefer the Soundgarden before Super Unknown. It's my personal preference, mind you. And Pearl Jam's 10 is another perfect album that I can listen to front to back and then start the process over, and almost wore out the tape copy of that as well. From then on, I discovered the likes of death metal, various other forms of metal, but all in all, I've never done drugs. I've never been an alcoholic. I've never felt the need to partake in any of that, simply because the music that I listened to always did the trick for me. It kept me alive, and various times where I was very, very close to not being alive. And for that, it's always going to be a part of my life there. All because of that one radio and a Bob Seger song that kicked everything off in 1983. Ta-da, I'm done.
That's a lot of music knowledge there.
It's interesting to me that you started your grunge journey with Nirvana and the Seattle sound, because in the timeline of things, that was one of the last things to happen in the big part of that movement.
Well, keep in mind I'm in Nebraska, and
yeah,
so a lot of our music consumption in Fremont happened to be the department stores. We didn't really have a proper music shop until a little bit later in the mid 90s. But yeah, it's when I walked into Walmart and saw suddenly there's this whole bunch of Nirvana and then cassettes of Facelift. I'm like, this looks interesting.
Fun fact, the same holding group that owned Z92 owned stations in different states. They actually owned one of our local stations as well. It was Z93. So I was looking it up. I was like, I wonder if there's a relation there, because I remember they had a station in Nebraska, and I'm wondering if it's the same. Yeah, it was. We shared a programming for a period of time.
Yeah.
That was
James.
music.
Go ahead, Del.
Oh, I was just saying that was bus music. We rode the same bus to school.
Oh yeah.
And
Since James and I are roughly the same age, I could say that his musical history is almost a mirror to my own.
are you a Hessian as well? Is that a thing in Ohio?
Uh, we didn't call them Hessians. We just called them metalheads.
Oh, see,
I
Hessians,
think
we were, it was rock, metal, grunge, all of that kind of thrown together. The the flannel crowd, but not just into grunge. If you did, we had like select chunks of music that kind of everybody that listened to any of those was considered a Hessian, and it's just a term that you don't hear too often outside of Nebraska.
Yeah, I think Hessian was probably a local colloquialism, just based on the metal movement using the German Iron Cross, which is probably where it comes from. But that wasn't. We didn't really hear the term in rural North Carolina.
That's right.
We had a term in Ohio
Okay.
for it. It was
I don't know if in rural North Carolina they would have even known what a Hessian was.
in Ohio. There was an actual term for it for people that pretty much dabbled in all those forms of music. They would be the kind of people that often had their own small groups that could wander in and out of other groups, but weren't really a part of anyone or anything, and they were just termed freaks in Ohio. Freaks. That's what the term was. It was a term that just you fit in everywhere and you listened to everything and you made no fucking apologies about it. And you didn't give a shit what people thought, and that was just your lifestyle.
Oh yeah. I mean, I had friends who turned me on to bands like They Might Be Giants, The Cure.
Oh hell yeah.
You know. Yeah. Who was it? The Dead Milkmen.
Mm-hmm.
Hell yeah. And in our house, it was weird because both my mom and dad are big Elvis fans. I got my middle name, and because it was Elvis's middle name and the name of Elvis's brother that didn't make it. So like my whole family is very Elvis-y. But one side would be more rock, one side would be more country, and then everybody would agree on like Cheech and Chong and like party funny stuff. But then also my uncle, who was only wasn't that much older than me, got me into Metallica as well. And then from there on, I just kind of explored metal on the side. And then when grunge hit, it was before Bad Motofinger. It was when Chris was he had other projects before Soundgarden.
The person that got me into Metallica was actually my little cousin Greg. Greg was maybe, I don't know, 2 to 3 years younger than me, so he would have been about 12 or 13, and introduced me to Metallica's "And Justice for All" album. I was not heavily into metal at the time. I listened to the Monkees and Ray Stevens and Alan Sherman and Weird Al Yankovic and a lot of 50s
the Dr.
and 60s
Demento.
music. Yeah, Dr. Demento, exactly. That's what I listened to, and of course the music that my parents listened to as well, the 1950s and 60s doo-wop rock. So that's what I listened to. And when I first heard the Metallica and Justice for All album, I wasn't really into it all that much. But about the time since I was in high school and I was taking art classes, we had the freedom to listen to whatever we wanted in art class while we're creating our art. Our art teacher was very open-minded about that with the music that we listened to in class. We could play whatever. So people would bring in all these different types of music, and Beatles and Pink Floyd and David Bowie and Queen, and it just introduced me to this whole new world of music out there that I had never heard before, and Metallica was part of that. They played Justice for All and Kill 'Em All, Ride the Lightning, Master of Puppets. They played all that stuff in art class, and that was my first exposure to it. And it sort of grew from there as I started to learn to play guitar, and I started meeting other kids in high school and my friends that were also playing musical instruments at the time. And we formed a band And of course, these were the songs that they wanted to play. So I start listening to it and trying to learn these songs and all of that. The first song that I ever performed live in front of an audience was Metallica, For Whom the Bell Tolls. And I've been, a fan of Metallica ever since. And like you, also pre-Black Album stuff, although I still include the Black Album just because I like it. I even like Load and Reload, and I'll even go so far as Death Magnetic. But the newer ones,
What, the Saint
Hardwired.
Anger isn't perfect for you?
Well, we don't talk about Saint Anger
or Lulu.
We don't talk about Lulu either. Although, if you were to take Lou's vocals out of Lulu and just listen to the music by itself, it's pure Metallica. It's real good. The music is excellent. It's just like listening to William Shatner doing his spoken word albums.
Before we move on to the next story, I think Pyle had something.
I just wanted to put out there that if there are teenagers, kids, and this and that that are watching this at any point, please do not say AC/DC. I only know them because of Iron Man. UncleNecRo will find you, and he will roll over you.
No. Why am I the one doing it? I'm fine with. Hey, if kids are being exposed to AC/DC through Iron Man or Guitar Hero, I'm fine with it. It's their introduction. But anyway, yeah, we need to move on here.
Do I lose cool points if I say I was out at the roller skating rink when I first heard Thunderstruck?
Those are problems.
Thunderstruck and that whole album is this album where if you need to get from point A to point B, no matter how far they are from each other, you will make it in like that song. You can go transcontinental if you need to, and you'll be there. So
probably. Moving on.
Yes. I believe
Okay. I sat up on the side of the bed and stood up. I suddenly felt a rope from my chest was attached to a replica of myself that was still supine, unmoving where I lay before. I could see a blue wispy strand with the width of my pinky finger from me to it. Then I heard voices. Jean and Jocelyn, my sisters, Ron and Steve, their husbands, standing by the door talking about if I would wake up, as well as the prospect of what type of life I would have after a stroke. But I'm standing right here. Why can't they see me? Next thing I know, a voice from behind me said, "You won't have to worry about that. When Daddy gets here, we will be leaving this realm until we have to get Mom." I whip around. I realize I can't walk further from the bed. Standing in front of me is Annie. She passed away 22 years ago. But she looks like she did when I was 10 and she was 19. "How are you here?" I asked. "It is the nearing of your time, and death is not one person. A loved one comes and gets each person as they die," she smiled. "What do you mean it's my time? Why would we have to come get Mom? I don't even know how I ended up here in the hospital attached to this thing on the bed." I ended up yelling. I realized I was afraid and started crying. "Derek, please stop yelling. I understand this is confusing. You had a stroke and they tried to bring you back, but your brain is too damaged for it to work properly anymore. When Daddy arrives, your body will fully have given up. Then we can go to the next realm of existence," she explained. The heart monitor started beeping. I looked up and the zigzag line on there had went straight. Suddenly, the blue line attached to the thing on the bed disappeared. And he had grabbed my shoulder and led me to the corner by the window as the nurses and the doctors ran in. I could hear them. They were talking, and my family were crying as they were pushed out of the room. It's okay, boy. You're transitioning to death. You will be able to hear them when we come back for your mom, Daddy said as he leaned against the right side of the door frame. What do you mean, come back for Mom? I whispered, dumbfounded at seeing Dad again. He died a couple of months after Annie. She wouldn't be able to take losing you. She won't be able to take losing you, too. So we will have to help her transition, too. Now come on, we need to get going. You will love it, Dad explained. Annie wrapped her arm in mine and guided me out the door. Our family is crying as they walk out of the double doors to the left at the end of the hall past the nurse's desk. A brilliant blue light with swirling white in it was at the end of was at the right side on the end of the hallway. Annie started pulling me towards it. It's okay. It's the door to the other side. We have to give you a tour and show you how it works, she said as we walked. I was speechless and still confused. Gave no resistance as I put my foot in it. I can't describe how beautiful it is here. Here we go. And that's it.
Yay.
Nice. I like that. Now, is that a part of a larger story?
It's how I was dealing with my uncle's death. And I wrote it is my imagination of what's happening when not dad, but grandpa came and got my uncle.
Very nice. I like that, man. It's really cool. I guess that leaves me. Everybody else is gone? Yep. Looks like everybody else is gone. All right.
Yep.
I'll take it as a story.
Sorry.
You have two you got two options. I can tell you about the Never Was Bridge or the Tale of Endicott Road.
Endicott?
Bridge or road?
Does Endicott Road go over the Never Was Bridge?
Nobody that's nearby it. It's in the same area, Huber Heights.
Well, both of them sound enticing.
Which is the one that we haven't heard that I've never heard before, you said?
You've heard pieces of Endicott because there's a lot of stories about Endicott, but like you haven't heard this one, pieces of it, but you've never heard anything from the Never Was Bridge. I don't think I've ever even told anybody about that.
Oh, well then let's
tell
hear
the
about
bridge.
All right, let's go with the bridge.
All right. This is the story of the Never Was Bridge. Now, part of this story starts in another story. When I've not really told all of it before. I'll just kind of skim a little bit here. There was a bridge in Huber Heights, Ohio, called Hope Bridge. I believe the one of the few stories I've told about this bridge was its relation to a legend that most towns and most states and countries have called a crybaby bridge, where you go out on midnight and you can hear a baby crying, somewhere near a bridge because there's a child that's died, and there's usually like a lady in white that comes along, looking for their child or whatever. This is weird, as in the baby cries at any time of day. You can hear the child like just crying somewhere in the water. People have jumped off to save the baby and died because although there is a river that runs underneath it, it's actually extremely shallow, although it doesn't look it. So people have like broken their legs and died and gotten swept down. People committed suicide on this bridge. There's been cult activity, murders on the bridge, you name it. Well, at one point in its incarnation, it was not yet part of the bike path in Ohio, because this was before the bike trails existed everywhere. And you could actually go on the other side But they'd stopped the driving traffic after the lady's child died on the bridge, and they just kind of left it open to foot traffic. It's just not a lot of people used it. Um, at this time, I was with a group of people in the first haunt I worked at, which was the Huber Heights Haunted Trails on Chambersburg. Yeah, real catchy title there. That's what it was called. Um, and this group of people and I were very into exploring the paranormal world as a whole, and we'd often find all kinds of different journeys to go on in our local town, in other towns. Um, this particular one was odd. We'd spent, I think, the better part of 3 weeks researching this area, that bridge. That's how I found out, that the legend I'd already heard about Crybaby Bridge was real, and a lot of other just odd things. And we decided we want to go past the bridge and walk all the way down where no one ever really seems to go to kind of see what was down there. So most of us had decided that we were going to camp out on a Friday at one of our houses. Um, we camp out at this house, make our plans on that Friday. We got little maps, that we're hand drawing. We're going to take the paper with us and make notations as we go down the road and kind of see what's down there. We're all ready to go. We meet up with a couple other friends, right at the haunted trail, because the haunted trail was just right around the corner from Endicott Road and this bridge. So we meet up, we walk partway down Endicott Road, we take the shortcut down the middle, we get to Hope Bridge. Well, again, then it was only Crybaby Bridge, now it's Hope Bridge. But we go across the bridge, we go to the end, and we realize that new signs have been put up, so you can't go right anymore, because I guess the guy that owned the property got really tired of people just traipsing around and fucking shit up and investigating. So he's got it all gated off. Okay, cool. So we're gonna have to left. We kind of knew it was right anyway. We knew about the guy's property. That guy had a shotgun, so we tended not to fuck around near his property. We were, we were dumb kids, but we were smart enough not to get shot. So we take this left, and we're walking, and we're walking, and at this point in time, and it's kind of funny to me that earlier Jody was talking about shrooms, because we were munching shrooms. Friend pulls some out of his pocket. He's like, "Hey man, we should if we're gonna really explore this and see what's out there, we should do it right." And we didn't take much. It was just, about a cap and a half a piece, not enough to make your face meld or hallucinations to kick in, more to just kind of keep your mind open and to a little bit of a buzz. And so, we take our cab, so we're going. At this point in time, now we've walked a mile down this road. There's nothing. It's just flat top. On the right at the time was a really tall fence. On the other side of the fence was just, base property from the other side of the base. But you couldn't really see anything because it hadn't been really developed that much yet. And on the left side was a tree line, just the tree line, because if you went all the way down that way, that's where the river was. So we were just walking along this river. We get probably another mile down, and we're the kind of kids that would literally walk for miles in a day, no problem. We were all hikers, and going 2 miles was really not anything much to us at all. But by the time you hit that second mile marker, we're feeling it. We're feeling shrooms. They're kicking in. We're feeling decent. We're cracking each other up. We're not being super loud because we don't want to draw attention to ourselves. But it's not like it's a space where a cop could get onto anyway. I mean, a bike cop, yeah, a horse cop could. But it's, no one ever went down here. No one did anything here. It was just there. We see this spot in the water, and there's rocks, but the rocks are suspended in the air. They're suspended in the actual air. They're not. It was like there should have been a bridge there, or there should have been some path there that the rocks were on, but it was invisible. We'd seen a lot of movies. We'd seen Indiana Jones. We knew what this meant, and we started getting little pieces of gravel and kind of toss them on, and sure enough, you could make a path. Like the rocks were not falling off; they were suspended in the air. So a friend of mine takes a big rock. It's probably a 5-6 pound rock. Lifts it up, shot put style, throws it as hard as he can. It goes past the halfway mark, floating in air. It didn't fall. We have no idea what's going on. So one of our lesser intelligent buddies decides it's a bridge and just runs and takes off running. And he walks across the air, past all the pieces of gravel, past the big rock. It makes it to the other side of the river. No problem. And we're all just absolutely fucking astonished by this. Like, how the fuck is there was never a bridge here? Like, there should not be a bridge here. The way they would have had to have built it anyway would have been so insane. And it's not like, our vision's distorted and there's foliage or there's something blocking it. There's just nothing. It's invisible. There's nothing there. So one by one, we all kind of chide each other and goad each other into crossing this damn thing, and we crossed the bridge. The weird thing is, where we should now be is right up near a road on the other side, like not too far, like after we cross this, except for there's no road. There's woods. These woods do not exist here. There is no conceivable way. We pull out our regular maps because back then we didn't have GPS as kids. We had to actually use paper maps, and they were very important when you were exploring random things and just doing drugs. So put out the map, we put out the compass, we tried to figure out where we were, and we could not find true north on the compass because there was just a spinning needle. Nothing. As if someone had taken a magnet and stuck it up underneath the compass, and it just would not stop. We realized we are somehow now in uncharted territory, which for us was not that strange. This was not the first time something odd like this had happened before. There was a story I told at one point in time about a time shift where we walked 3 miles down a road and ate the same tiny bag of sunflower seeds for several hours without it somehow ever running out. Well, there was more to that story than that, but this was, just a group of people that were all into pushing boundaries because we researched all these things and we knew so much about the paranormal and the supernatural worlds that nothing could ever touch us because we were morons. And in our idiocy, we decided, let's explore this unknown territory. So that's what we did. We started exploring. 5-10 minutes in, we come to a clearing, and there's a graveyard right in the middle of, literally, again, a clearing, a small clearing in the woods that shouldn't exist. So we go to this graveyard, we start looking around it. And there's this one particular stone that catches my eye because there's a shadow darting around near it. And it's not one of our shadows. So I'm like, hey guys, what the fuck is that? So we all shine our flashlights over. There's nothing there. We look around, we look behind it, nothing. There's this really, this thing is, this stone is like traditionally shaped. It's got the top that goes like that. Straight sides, bottom. And it says, passers stop as you pass by, for where you are, so once was I. For where I am, you soon will be. Prepare for death and follow me. And I was the one that read it out loud because, it seemed like the thing to do. And right as I finished, there's this huge crash at the edge of the clearing. It sounded like a fucking bear running through like thick foliage, like snap, crack. And the trees were just shaking over there, and then dead silence. So, us not being afraid of anything and nothing can touch us, decide to go check it out. So we head over right to where the sound was coming from. Again, our not too intelligent friend runs into the bushes as quick as he can, waving his arms like this because if it's a bear, they'll run away. He knows what he's talking about. And there's nothing there. Absolutely nothing. We're a little bit unsettled, but we decided to keep going a little bit farther. We go to we meet up with him. We kind of go to the woods that way. Again, the compass is still useless. We're checking the maps again. There's nothing. There's no indicators. There's nothing that tells us where we are. So the whole time we're making notes about, we're still got that piece of paper. We're kind of drawing where we've been, where we went, our own little map. We're still keeping up with that and everything as well. Our own map. And we decide to go farther. So we go farther, and there's 2 paths we can take. The woods are so thick you could only go right or left. And this time, instead of there just being woods we're crashing through, there's an actual path, like lined path. You can tell like that people use frequently somehow, even though this doesn't exist. And we have a rule that we always go left. That's just the rule of every group I've ever hung out with. We just always go left. So we took the left, and a couple minutes in, and the path is starting to get thinner and thinner. We're to the point now where we're walking one by one. because the foliage and the trees are so close, and the foliage is like overgrown, like on the edges, that you couldn't even go into the woods at this point in time. Like there was barely like maybe that much room on either side of me, and I was one of the bigger guys, and it was, if you were claustrophobic, you wouldn't have been able to do it. It was that weird of a squeeze. So we're going through it, and then someone in the back of our group I got hit by something, and we're like, what do you mean you got hit by something? Well, we can't all stop and go check on them because we're stuck in this really tight path. And then the next thing I know, one of our friends screams, "Run for it." We can't turn around and go back because presumably what's ever happening is behind us, and we don't know where forward leads to. So people just start screaming to go, 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 and I take off running. I'm in the front of the group at this point in time. I'm taking off. Everybody's running behind me. We get to it. I don't even know how to explain this. It was almost like an abandoned playground, but it was like a playground you would have seen in like the 20s or 30s. And everything was brand new. It wasn't aged. It wasn't weather worn. It looked like it had just been built, again, in the middle of the fucking woods. You've got the little, playground signs, have a good day, we hope you enjoy this. There's little picnic tables. There's, right in the middle, there's those stupid spinning metal discs of doom that we all played on as kids, the merry-go-round. I file out, I turn around to kind of give everybody a space because I want to see what's going on. Everybody's passing me, and gets to the end of the group, and you see the trees. There was a thorn probably about that big sticking out of my friend's hip. And all she would say was that it was a dart. She wasn't calling it a thorn, she was calling it a dart. And someone shot her with a dart. And you hear this crunch, crunch, the cracking of the woods, and the woods are just sort of closing up. We can't go back the way we just came because, again, it looks like the path was just never there. The trees have shifted somehow in some way that doesn't make sense. And this foliage is also entirely surrounding this weird little playground that we're now stuck in because there's now no way out of the playground. And again, the foliage is so thick and the trees are so close together, there's not even really good ways to squeeze past them. Maybe the smallest amongst us might have been able to, but that might have also been a death sentence for them. So we just sort of gathered together. We made some notes. We checked the compass. Again, nothing. We checked the map. Nothing. We're probably here for maybe 15, 20 minutes. And all around us, you just hear these cries, these weird, high-pitched screams. We're not sure what they are, where they're coming from exactly, because when you're out in the woods and you hear a sound travels strangely, especially the closer together the trees are. So you just hear them at different points all around this, this big park. Not, again, I say a big park, but it was tiny. I'm trying to find the best way to describe the size of this. I really don't have a good way to describe the size of this. It was not even half of a football field, like a high school football field. Like not even half of it. Say maybe a third of a high school football field at best. And we're just fucked. We don't know what we're doing. And now, we went from our, we know everything, we know what's going on, to, maybe we got a problem. Maybe we got in over our heads. And I remember when we pulled what she kept insisting was a dart out of her hip. This like black, it was just pure black, what looked like sap almost was just coming out of this thing. Again, it looked like a thorn to me. 3 more come out of the woods. Bam, bam, bam. 3 different people now have these long ass fucking thorns, darts sticking out of different parts of their body. 2 more. About a minute later. And it comes to the point where I get hit one like right in my side because I'm going like this to figure out what's going on. And I just got it right there in the side. First thing I'm noticing is that my buzz had pretty much died off about right before we actually made it to the park or to whatever this thing was. And it's kicking back up in again, but it's more intense. I pull the thing out There's an obvious puncture wound, but I'm not bleeding. All that's coming out is that little bit of black sap stuff or whatever the hell it is. The first person that got hit in her hip, she lays down on the slide and just kind of passes out. Next thing you know, one by one, people are dropping. Where they are, just boom, boom, boom. I've done a lot of drugs at this point in time in my life. Not as much as I've done by now, but a lot of drugs. And the weird thing about me is I'm medication resistant. I have to switch medications often to get them to work properly. There'll be periods of time where I even smoke very little pot, so that way I can enjoy it again later. So it's been a kind of a problem all my life, but it might have also been the thing that saved me and maybe us that day, because as they're going down, I've just got a really intense buzz, but I'm still on my feet. The path opens up, and something is coming down the path. Again, you can hear it. Very heavy, intense footsteps, a lot of foliage shifting, a lot of cracking sounds, and this thing that looks very much like a tree steps out, and it just stands there, just staring at everyone. And it comes over to me. Not, I mean, it doesn't just stroll over there. It kind of like this weird little stuttered march thing, just kind of moves in and stands probably 10 feet away from me. But as it comes towards me, it also kind of goes around the edge of the clearing too. So it's always got its back towards the woods. And it gets close where I am, and it just stands there. It just stares at me, just waits. I'm assuming at this point in time it's waiting for me to pass out like everyone else passed out, but I don't really understand what its intentions are. And it just watches. I don't say anything to it. It doesn't say anything to me. And I don't know how much time passes. It could have been a minute, it could have been an hour. I have no understanding at that point in time of the intensity of the buzz and just the sheer shock of the situation, exactly how long this took. But it turned around with its back to me and it just walked into the woods. And the trees parted, like they shifted and almost like bent as it went through. And then it went. I stayed there for a long time. Again, I could not tell you how long, just notating the map, writing things down, writing what I was seeing, what I was experiencing while they were all passed out. I know the sun hadn't quite come up yet, but the sky was starting to get a little bit lighter by the time my friend who got shot in the hip came to. And then within an hour of that, I'd say everybody just kind of started waking up. We weren't really sure what to make of anything or what exactly to do or what anything was. So we decided the best option we had was probably to go back the way we came, since that path was open now. And so we did. We went back. Through the woods, found the graveyard again, went back, found the bridge. Rocks were still floating in midair where we left it. We crossed the bridge and we made the couple-mile walk home. Now, on the way home, or I mean, on the way back to Hope Bridge anyway, we did not talk a lot at all. We talked a little bit in the woods, but we didn't not really talk at all. Like, no one knew what to say or what to do about anything whatsoever. So, and it was a pretty awkward trip back. So we get back to Hope Bridge. We cross that bridge. We get back, walk all the way back to the haunted trail that we worked at. And we just kind of sat down and we smoked a bowl. We sat down in our usual circle. We passed some bowls around, some joints. Again, we didn't talk a whole lot until that was over. And we got done smoking. We kind of talked about our experiences. And everybody that passed out had the same dream. And I don't remember the entirety of the dream. I'm sure like some of the details have been lost to time and drugs. The gist of the dream was that we had passed into some kind of dimensional tear, and they all dreamed about the same creature, tree thing that I saw. Everybody dreamed about it, and dreamed about it standing in front of them in the clearing, telling them that it was okay, that it was time to rest now. That they had lived and fought, a long, hard life, and if they would just come with it, all their troubles would disappear. And every one of them said, that they just got this feeling from this thing that that it meant no harm, that it really did just want to help. It was very convincing. They felt very soothed by its voice, by its presence, and they said every one of them followed it. And at a certain point, they said it just kind of faded off. Like the thing faded off into nothingness, and a wall of trees just sprung up and barred them from moving any further. And then that's when they all started waking up. And I've always wondered if I had fallen asleep too, would we have ever come back from that? Would we have just left our bodies? Because the way they were describing things, it sounded like out of body experiences. That's what it very much sounded like and felt like, as they discussed it. And I don't know, it still kind of unsettles me a little bit. This is, again, it's hard for me to talk about because it's a very weird situation. It's one of the weirdest situations I've been in, with one of the weirdest lack of resolutions or lack of understanding what it is. And but I do remember we had those puncture wounds. They would not heal for fucking ever. It took the majority of the summer for these things to start to heal. And I actually still have this scar, this little circular scar in my side from it. And everyone that was there that day, those that are still with us, all have the same exact little scar and the same places those thorns or darts or whatever hit them. And it gets painful once in a while. Like, it's not like one of those things, if it's about to rain, I hurt, or there's no real understanding of why, except for usually when it starts to hurt a little bit. I know that something odd or something it's unbelievable is about to happen, but it usually is related to more dream-based things. Like, for some reason, like if I feel like that stabbing pain, that little spot, I'll end up having a really weird, fucked up dream or an out-of-body experience, or just some weird thing involving my dreaming. It's never oh my god, there's a monster's gonna crash through, or I'm gonna see a ghost today. It's something like that. It's like this really weird forewarning when a fucked up dream is gonna happen. But as a writer, that's kind of helpful because I can take a pad, a paper, and a pen or something and stick it next to the bed. So when I inevitably wake up unsettled, I can jot it all down. So I guess in a way, it's kind of a weird little reminder. But I don't know what that sap was or what have you. I just know that I wish I could find it again because it might have been one of the greatest buzzes I've ever had without side effects, other than the scar on my side. But yeah, if you know what that stuff is, let me know. That's about it.
Very nice. Yet another reason to not go camping with Dr. Raz T Slasher.
Hey,
I want to go camping. I want to go camping. I don't care. I stayed this entire time just to find a good reason that I'm going to go camping with him next time. You know what?
I just don't know that I'd survive it. I don't know.
I heard camping with Raz is intense.
As long as there's no hiking.
I always hike. It fucking kills my body every time I try and do it, but I always have to at least night hike for a little bit.
Yeah, I've heard some of the stories that come from these night hikes. No. Oh, night hike. Oh, there's a pizza in the middle of the trail. Oh.
Oh no, you would never find me eating food like that out in the middle of nowhere because you don't know who's offering it, and never accept food in the woods.
It's a mimic.
You know what? I will try it at least once. Give me a haunted slice.
I laughed, she laughed, the pizza laughed.
I found trail pizza.
I laughed, they laughed, pizza laughed.
All right. So 2.5 hours in here, I believe we have finished our 8-person night.
Yeah.
And we were worried about having enough people to be on. So yes, we made it through. We conquered.
Yeah.
We got together. Should go through and see where everybody do a wrap up.
Yeah.
All right. I'm going to start. We'll wrap around to... Oh, we end with Jenny. So we'll go this way. that way. I can't do that with my finger right. It doesn't make sense to me. But hi, I'm Del. You can find me here on the Owlite Network on about half of the shows that we do. If you want to find me on Facebook, look up Carrie, Kari Sanders, and let's see, if you see this, that is me. And that'll lead you to my author page, to some other things. I'm also on the Dorkening that Ally is also a part of on Splash Pages. This Tuesday we're going to be interviewing Tony Fleeks and Trish Forstner from Stray Dogs and Feral. And so those are some great comics if you want to check them out. It's like Lady, I believe they introduced Stray Dogs as Lady and the Tramp meets Silence of the Lambs. So it's some very intense, very hit you in the feels kind of comic stuff. And yeah, that's all I have to say. Oh, and if you the reason we do Jenny last is because if you try to contact me on any form of social media outside of my regular Facebook page, you'll probably get her.
Yeah.
She's cool like that. I can't do all of it. So it's Raz.
You can find me at your mom's house. Sorry, not my mom's house. I can't even talk today. I cannot word it all today. Other than that, RazTSlasher.com or just ask Jenny. She's got it.
Pal, where'd you go? We lost Pal.
Yeah. You can find me, Johnny, on the Owlite Network when I do things here. Or you can
talk to me, and I'm Pile Hazard. You can find me on Facebook. You can find me on TikTok, which I might have did a TikTok tonight. You can find me wherever, and I can't wait until this Friday because another episode of Chainer's Haunted Secrets, and we're going to have a fun friend on here.
Yeah. Fred.
But yeah, you can find me on the Owlite Network.
James.
Hi, I'm your Uncle Necro, and I had a big steamy TikTok earlier today. But you can find me on the Owlite Network on various, doing various podcasts and blogging and stuff, and going to be published soon. Yay! Finally.
Ron.
Wake up.
Wake up. Wake up.
Makeup.
Oh, yeah. Makeup.
I think your mute is on.
We cannot hear you, Ron.
We can't hear you.
Yeah, his mute's not on, though.
Hi, my mic is not on. I forgot. It has a power button all its own. So, me, and now you can. Me, and now you can. Okay, enough shenanigans. If they shenan once, they're going to shenan again. I'm being judged. Yes, name's Ron. You can find me on Facebook under my author page, Ronald W Gillespie Jr. -author, with my book that is currently behind me here. That's the cover, and you can find it on Amazon. Buy it, read it, leave a review, buy many copies of it, give it to people for Christmas. It's the only way I get paid, and that'd be nice because we all like money, right? Yeah, sure. That's why I'm writing. You can also find me on TikTok. I have a YouTube channel, but I haven't done anything with it, so not really pushing it much lately. But I still every now and then create stuff for TikTok. I am a martial artist by training and by profession, hobby, career. So most of my content on TikTok is martial arts if you're into that sort of thing. Otherwise, just get in touch with Jenny and she can get hold of me as well. So, she's cool like that. And we all love Jenny. So I'll pass it up to her.
Jenny.
You can find me here on Owlite. You can find me on Fake Horror. You can find me on my pages, Friday with the Library in the Blue Box, and my author page, Jennifer Elliott. And if you want to talk to any of the people on Fake Horror Owlite, whatever, I will help you get the message to them, or I will answer all your questions if there's something I can do.
Jenny is all of us. She really
Yes.
is. She is Argyle Friday, and we love her.
Jenny wears many hats and everybody's pants.
She wears more hats
Jenny.
than Dobby. All right, everybody. Thank you for coming, and be well. Have a good time.
See you.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Happy
Love you.
trails.